Hi, and welcome to Drummers Review. I'm Nolly, and today we're going to be looking at a trio of Evetts snare drums. Evetts Drums is a custom builder based out of Sydney, Australia, and they specialise in using Australian hardwoods when creating their bespoke, handmade drums. The first of the snares we're going to be looking at today is a 12 by 7 inch drum. It's got an 8-ply construction, which are 7 plies of spotted gum on the inside, and an outer veneer of black heart sassafras. The second drum we're looking at is a 13 by 5.5, 12-ply construction, with 11 plies of Queensland walnut and an outer ply of tiger myrtle. And finally, the third drum is a 14 by 7 inch. It's got a 10-ply construction with a jarrah shell and an outer veneer of silky oak. While the three snares have quite different construction and timbers, what they do have in common is that they all use triple flange hoops and tube lugs. And in terms of price, the 12 and 13 come in at £839, while the 14 is £869. So let's take a deeper listen to these snares on a few different tunings and come back for some discussion afterwards. Our first impression was that these are just absolutely lovely drums. They look exceptional. The quality of finish is absolutely outstanding, to the point that we even wondered if perhaps that was a printed wrap on the outside. They look that perfect. The unusual woods here are all beautiful and exotic looking, and that inlay stripe on the 12-inch looks particularly good too. The actual Evitts logo itself looks very purposeful, and if anything to me conjures up more of an image of a mass-produced drum than one that comes from a bespoke builder. These 3 drums all come from Evitts, fitted with a Remo-controlled sound on the batter side and a snare side ambassador on the reverse, and as I mentioned before, all of them feature pure sound wires as well. Moving on to the sound, the 14, and maybe it's just the depth combined with the construction, the timbre, and the choice of a slightly controlled head, the end result is just this lovely chesty wallop. This is a great sounding drum. It's got tons of definition and attack to it, but it doesn't take your ear off at the same time. It's a very well-rounded, great sounding 14. This is a really versatile drum with a very wide tuning range, which we liked a lot. So we found that when tuned low, it didn't have an overly wet sound. It still stayed quite pleasantly dry. And when tuned high, it didn't seem to choke either. So this would be a great drum for covering a lot of musical bases. Though if you really want to focus on higher tunings, perhaps it would be worth moving on to the 13. Being shallower than the other 2 drums, the 13 definitely came across as a little bit more articulate. It was particularly obvious in some of the more intricate stuff that Nick played, that it just had a slightly more kind of staccato timbre to it, and you could really make out every single note very clearly, with the previous stroke never ringing out on top of the other. It's worth saying that what you gain in responsiveness, you do lose a little bit in terms of body, at least in comparison to the other 2 drums. It's not to say that it's a drum that lacks body. If anything, it's quite a full-sounding drum. It's just that in comparison to the other 2 drums that we had here today, it didn't have quite that same wallop. In terms of the kinds of styles that this drum would be really good for, I would suggest funk, pop, gospel, or just people that put a lot of detail into their snare parts and really want that to be heard at all times. Finally, we move on to the 12-inch, and it's really hard not to smile when you hear this one. It's just got such an aggressive, loud pop to it. I think Evitts have been really smart by specifying a 7-inch depth for this drum, because it manages to maintain quite a lot of body, even though it is obviously really high-pitched and aggressive sounding. We did find that this drum did choke a little bit when cranked to the extreme, but I will say we pushed it really hard, and you don't necessarily need to crank a 12 that much to get a really high-pitched, ear-splitting sound out of it. The feel also suffered a little bit at that extreme high tension. It felt a bit like hitting a wood block, but like I say, I mean, we were really cranking it to an extreme there. And at the other end of things, something nice about a 12 is it does still overlap a little bit with the higher end of a 14-inch drum. So if you're a drummer that doesn't need a lot of low range to your snare, you could actually use the 12 as your main in a surprising amount of situations. For those of you that need the more conventional sounds of a 14 or 13, a 12 like this could also make an excellent side snare. In fact, we think this 12 with the 14 that we reviewed would make a really great pair. Obviously, with Evitts being a bespoke drum manufacturer, you can specify your own preference of timbre and construction, so what we have here is just a snapshot of what's available from Evitts. Moving on to the build quality, we have to say that these drums are just flawless inside and out. They have excellent bearing edges and shell roundness, leading these to be probably some of the easiest snare drums we've ever tuned up for Drums Review. In terms of shell hardware, the triple flange hoops and vintage style tube lugs, nothing special, they're completely functional, but we were really pleased to see trick throw-offs used on these drums. As far as we're concerned, they're probably the best strainers on the market, so a very welcome addition here. These drums definitely fit into the high-end price bracket for a snare drum, but we do think that the fact that these are bespoke drums made out of rare exotic timbers, the build quality being so amazing, and of course the exceptional sound quality does justify that price tag. Obviously, this area of the marketplace is very hotly contested, but who isn't happy to have more choice of amazing snare drums out there? So we're really pleased to see these Evitts drums making their way to UK shores. We really hope you've enjoyed seeing this video, but please let us know what you think too by leaving us a comment. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos from us, and I'll see you next time at Drummers Review.